Yo, what is good, everyone? What's good? What's good with you? How we doing? How we doing? How we doing? Sunday night episode. In here, Dolo. Dolo for the evening. Dabinky could not make it tonight. She is traveling, so we wish her well and traveling mercies and all of those things. Normally we would be doing, I guess we can agree on that. But you know me, if you're part of the Hold Up TV fam, I don't like to waste an opportunity to get out here and mix it up and talk to the people and the fans. Shout out to everyone that's here early. Shout out to Mantis. He's the one who made this the design for Conversations That Matter. And shout out to DJ Cincy Star for that music for Conversations That Matter. Hope you guys enjoyed that while you were waiting. Let's get this guy out of here. You get out of here. You get out of here. How is everyone doing this evening? Tap in. Let me know who's still in here. We got El Gucci Mane. We got Tim. We got Princess Bex, my boy Cincy Star. And this is something you're going to be seeing your man do more often if you weren't around the other night. I've officially turned over the reins of Request Box Live and Booty Pop and Shakin' to my good friend DJ Cincy Star. He'll be heading up both those projects on the Hold Up TV, controlling all those things. And if you weren't there for Booty Pop and Shakin' this Friday, Cincy got it lit, got it cracking up in there. I really enjoyed the end of the stream when he turned the camera on and we could see my man dancing since he got his two-step on. So what's going on? How far down the rabbit hole do I go? Man, we're going to go deep tonight. So shout out to DT Dub TV. He's the one that made the thumbnail. If you're watching on YouTube, Modern Woman says Kevin Samuels was right is one of our topics. The next thing we're going to be talking about is Matt Walsh's new documentary that's tearing up the internet right now, brought to you by the Daily Wire. What is a woman? Controversial subject, controversial documentary. Very, 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 very controversial. Last time I checked, I have not checked since I've been home, but was actually doing extremely well. Doing extremely well according to Rotten Tomatoes. Matt Walsh and Daily Wire, they have a few different projects out there. They are really trying to cultivate and captivate the conservative viewpoint by creating content, something a lot of people said they should have been doing a while ago, but they're spearheading it. So that's what we got. And, there's other stuff going on in the internet too, man. Azealia Banks had a hard night the other night. Decided to tell the fans at a performance that, she just didn't feel like being there. And one of them definitely gave her the business by throwing some water. This is not a big deal. I love how some of the internet trades were reporting on it. If you've ever been to a hip hop show before, if all you got was water splashed on you, you got off light. That's the real right there. That is the real. Fat Mantis says, I think it's great what they're doing over there, referring to the Daily Wire. I also think it's great, man. I'm the type of person that likes diversity of thought. And when I say diversity of thought, I'm not talking about what poor Kanye was trying to articulate when he was like, he's an open mind, he's a free thinker. I believe that the public forum that's been created by the internet, in places like Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, we need this type of dialect, right? We need people to go back and forth, especially for the general population, on top of doing research. How will you know what the greatest thinkers of both opposing sides are saying if they don't engage each other? So that's going to be another thing. Is conversation stifled by feelings, right? Should people in a civil manner be out here mixing it up and talking about their opposing views? Are we in a place as a society where we just, it's safer to suppress thought? I have heard some interesting takes on this. I don't agree with a lot of them. And, I want to hear from the fans. So I'll probably be, letting people call up, jump in, all that stuff. I know I haven't done this format in a while. Usually we used to do this on Green Room, but it's something I want to get back to. I love having panel and topics, but let me just do a few more shout outs before we get into it. No sponsors to promote except for myself, the Hold Up TV, Steve, your boy, real name, no gimmicks. I do want to give a shout out to G of the Morning Journal, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern, bringing you positive affirmation while doing deep probes with great prompt designed and questions. Shout out to Stacy over on Spoon as well, bedtime ASMR, always bringing the highest quality of company and ASMR to that platform, Spoon. We also want to give a shout out to Power Love Latinas, Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, over on Spoon. Amazing conversation there. It's the story or the presentation of 3 Latina women sharing their culture with the rest of us. Shout out to Enough Said Radio, headed up by the amazing Tree and Leilani on Friday nights and Saturday nights, also at 9 p.m. Eastern. Great conversation. And the Tune Accolade podcast, which is on Wednesdays. If there's anything you want to oh, and let me not forget, shout out to DT Dub TV. Great young brother, great talent over on YouTube. Great game commentary, and just dropped this new merch, plugging the entire team. Let's not forget about Dope Dynamics. Let's not forget about Dope Dynamics, obviously being on Wednesdays, 10 p.m. Myself, Cincy Star, Princess Bex, and DaVinci. And then let's not forget about Dumbing Out on the radio with me and my man, Cincy Star. Absolutely amazing time dumbing out. Don't come to dumbing out looking for any conversation that you can't handle. We're bringing the ruckus over there. And then Thursday, not Thursdays any longer, but Friday nights, Booty Poppin' Shakin' Friday night with your boy DJ Cincy Star. And then he will be we'll be getting together and he'll be dropping the next date for Request Box Live. Once again, Cincy Star will be heading up both those projects. My partner in crime, we got shit going here. So first things up for the evening, right? Minding my business at work, giving these customers the business, like yes, no, maybe so. I am the god and the controller. Well, I don't want to say God. I am the dictator of the entire situation when I'm at work. I try to treat my clients with a modicum of respect, courtesy, all the things you would want when you come in a moment when you're trying to get something repaired. But I get a message from DG Dub. He doesn't message me a great deal. We usually talk mostly in his Discord. And whenever he sends me something, I'm going to stop and check it out. He's a contributor and a sponsor to the show. One of my he's donated many times. And he sent me a video from a content creator over on YouTube by the name of Ash on the Line. And it says, why Kevin Samuels was right and modern women were wrong. Confessions of an Ex-Modern Woman. So because of the way the algorithm works on YouTube, you know, I got to make sure I'm talking while I'm commentating over the video. But I'm going to share the screen. We're going to get into this, see what your thoughts are. And you know, let's see how you like it. Let's see how you like it. Let's see what you think. Let me know if you can hear the audio.
Respectful, and honestly, I used to be argumentative, quick to anger, disrespectful, and honestly, I wanted problems always.
I don't want peace. I want problems.
Like most women, when I first seen the Kevin Samuels Average at Best video, I thought to myself, why is he so mean? What makes him think he can talk to us like this?
So that's one of the hugest criticisms, obviously, of the late Kevin Samuels, a man who was trying to, I believe, bring accountability to both sides, both sexes in the Black community. And whether you hate him or love him, he definitely started a conversation that needed to be started. I don't think his message is going away anytime soon. It's amazing for me to see people marginalize it with personal attacks and ad hominem, but you know, that's, you know, the telltale sign of a small mind. You should engage with the opposition. You should see what they're saying intellectually. Like, you cannot like the person, but can you disprove them wrong?
I held that same viewpoint for a while and thought maybe he just needs to change his tone. But what most people don't know is Kevin Samuels talked to men like this for 3 years before he even started talking to women.
Focus on cultivating that relationship.
With what? Cultivating relationship with what?
With getting out there and getting a relationship.
You don't have anybody. Sir, this is unacceptable.
Yeah, I know.
I hope you didn't come here looking for sympathy.
Oh, no. Heck no.
Do you have both your limbs?
Yes, sir.
Then why don't you have a job? Negro, you need a job.
Yo, and this is something that a lot of people don't realize about Kevin Samuels, right? And I've talked to people about this before. It would be one thing if he popped up out of the ether, out of nowhere, and it's his target audience, and his only critique was against women. Then I would say yes, maybe you're correct. Maybe he's heavy-handed and he's doing this in an opportunistic way to be a chauvinist. But if someone's being consistent and their message is for both parties involved, then maybe you've misrepresented him. Let's see what else you're saying.
Yes, sir.
Get off YouTube, get off Instagram, get off TikTok, get off your ass and go to fuck to work.
Yes, sir.
Why'd I do that? Because, guys, look, we got to call bullshit when we see it.
Yes, sir.
So why does the divorce rate drop dramatically for black couples as well over an income of $250,000?
I didn't know that.
Maybe because you're not part of that group.
So let me ask you guys a question. As you're watching this, as you're listening to Kevin Samuels engage with the gentleman, did you know that he spent the majority of his time before he actually went viral critiquing and coaching and encouraging men? Did you know that? Yes, he started off originally critiquing fragrances, and he was more leaning heavily towards his personal wardrobe design career path. I forget what the correct like your personal shopper. He was helping guys look better, smell better, feel better about themselves with their external traits. And then he started giving out more life advice, common sense life advice, where he was helping young men specifically understand where they were, why they were hitting the same roadblocks over and over again. Did you know that?
Are you being serious, bro?
I am, but the finances is definitely something.
No, hell no. If anything, you should be happy that I'm talking about what I'm talking about, because it's highlighting the problem of hypergamy out of control.
I'm happy, and I think it's necessary.
Men knew that it was just brutal honesty, and some of them even called back to thank him. Whereas when he started talking to women, they took it pretty personal. As women often...
That's something I want to hear from the ladies about. So yes, to answer Princess Becca's question, yes, a lot of women know that, but I'm wondering, did his minions know that? Yes, his minions are acutely aware, the men that you call his minions, his audience transferred over from there. They came from his original style when he was specifically speaking to men, and they came over into the conversation. And Kevin Samuels, though, as far as I know, he doesn't have any credits in psychotherapy or a clinician or MFT. His original audience was about building up young men. Shout out to Before the Billions. Go check out his YouTube channel. His channel is completely geared towards improving the image of black men. Had him on the show. Absolutely amazing episode, but he is also following that vein. Also, shout out to El Guapo, Anton Daniels, that whole crew. I'm not a red pill guy, right? I'm someone who has a lot of old school mentality, so I can see where they're coming from in a lot of this stuff. Let's see what the sisters say.
Sometimes we think with our feelings first, whereas men are more likely to think with logic. Sometimes you have to be willing to hear the ugly truth, and you can't become the best version of yourself if everyone's afraid to call you out on your problems. Kevin Samuels just wasn't afraid. In the infamous Average at Best video, a woman called...
How many of you have actually seen the Average at Best video? Because I've never seen the entire thing. I've only seen the 20 minutes leading up to him saying that. So when I watched this video, DT Dub sent me, shout out again to DT Dub, YouTube game commentary. This part blew my mind. You got to listen very closely. Cincy Star says in the chat, I was also aware. The first time I think I told DT Dub I didn't like him, it was because of the way he talked to other men. All right, we're going to get into that, man. We're going to get into that.
In and interrupted the topic he was discussing for the evening. At first, he refused to talk to her. She begged him to discuss the problems she was having in her dating life. Reluctantly, he decided to talk to her, and throughout...
Did you hear that? Wasn't the original subject matter. She called in with something else. So if you know anything about Kevin Samuels, or you're a content creator yourself, when you do a panel, when you're doing a live show, you want to stick to a strict format. You get a lot of crazy people who want to talk about all types of nut stuff, right? And you're just like, no, this is the topic. Can we stay on topic? a trait that's really, really, really difficult for a lot of people. This young lady called in, wanted to switch it up to another subject, and after about 20 minutes or so, Kevin conceded. So here we go.
The entire 23-minute video, he told her what she could do to improve, but she was in denial about everything he was saying. Then finally, at the end of the video, he delivered that infamous line.
You're average looking at best.
She wanted a man that made over 6 figures because that's what she made. But what she didn't realize is a man that makes 6 figures doesn't want a woman that makes that. He's going to want a homemaker, a wife.
A little bit more context around that. When he told her that you were average at best, he was also dealing with the expectation that she had, because she, I believe, if I remember correctly, some of his later commentary was that she had demeaned men who were of average earning capacity, men who had normal jobs, who weren't high figure earners, but were good men. And this is where the conversation gets really interesting, I think, between the red pill community and everyone else. What is the difference between a high value man and a man of value and a man of integrity? And I think sometimes in this narrative that there are no good men out there, that we forget that there are men who work extremely hard at being good men and decent men, but maybe they're not represented in the economic bracket that you're looking for. I'm not saying that a woman has to settle. You know, you go do you. You have the freedom to do whatever you want in America. But at the same time, do you get to demean good men because they make less than you? I don't think so, because I would never talk down on a woman who is a good woman who works at Walmart. I just wouldn't do it. I might talk bad about Walmart, the company, unless they want to sponsor me, but I'll never demean a decent woman who works somewhere who makes less than me. It just doesn't make sense.
You've probably only seen highlights of him going off on women, or maybe someone you trust told you that he's an asshole. But when you watch over 50 of his live streams like I have, you really start to understand why he spoke the way that he did. If I'm being honest, today us women are just so used to being coddled. We're constantly told that we're queens, and we've been conditioned to not take any criticism. We think we're perfect, we think we're special, we think we're the prize, and we receive no accountability for our actions. Before
we go any deeper, right? There's a word that gets floated around a lot called pick me. When a woman has a contrary view to the population, the popular view, you know, she's referred to as a pick me, because it is then said that the only reason she is behaving this way or saying the things that she says is because she wants to be picked by a man, that she's desperate to be picked by a man. I think that's intellectually dishonest, because a lot of our forebears, some of our, you know, our older moms and aunts and cousins think the same way this young lady does. So are you calling them pick-me's as well? I also think pick-me's, the term itself, is just a shaming tactic. And to go a little bit more into that, why that's intellectually dishonest and why it's used, is that's usually because someone can't engage the actual conversation. So rather than taking this young lady at face value and saying that, hey, she has had a shift and a change in the way that she thinks, they demean her or they speak bad about her. It goes on the other side as well, right? You know, this is, but the akin to it would be, ironically, someone else would say, well, you're slut shaming. And that's a way to shush a woman who's trying to defend her right to be promiscuous. Both sides do it. It sucks on both sides.
Before Kevin's passing, 12 couples got married from his Facebook group. That number has increased and doesn't even count the couples whose relationships improved or men and women who took his advice and got engaged.
Talking about making people feel, I don't make you feel anything. You're in control of your own emotions. I think that's an unfair characterization by anything else, because if we flip that up, there are people who make money off of making women feel good and lie to them. There are people who openly pander to women, telling them everything is okay, and live false lives in their face, and women can see this and continue to do it. So I always say judge things on the outcome. There have been more videos on YouTube saying Kevin Samuels has saved my marriage. I'm better. I'm married today because of Kevin Samuels. Kevin Samuels' advice works. I talk about, you know, this group I had on Facebook where people are getting together. People can focus on what they want to.
Kevin Samuels.
So, you know, and that's another thing that I find interesting, is that people want to completely demean some of the work that he's done, right? So there, I am aware of the Facebook group. I've heard him speak about it often. I've seen the testimonies from people who've gotten married. And if you're unaware of how that Facebook group would work, if I remember correctly, because he explained this, he would say, he would invite men to the group and he would have them verify their economical standings, not because it was supposed to be exclusive, Well, it was exclusive, but that wasn't the deciding factor. And it's brilliant the way he did this. If you're looking for a certain type of woman and you're saying that this woman has to behave a certain type of way, or you're looking for these values, then he wanted to verify that you were able to provide your side of that bargain. And I thought that was absolutely amazing. Thought that was dope.
Samuels recognized the increasing divide between men and women, and in his own way, he was trying to fix that. You may think he was an asshole, and to be honest, maybe he was. But assholes get shit done. He cut past the filler, he cut past the coddling, and he told us the truth. I'm a better woman because of it, and I thank him for that. Because to be honest, I used to be a little crazy. Here's 4 reasons why Kevin Samuels was right and modern women are wrong.
All right, we're not gonna go through the whole video, but I definitely wanted to go through the 4 reasons and see what everyone thought, get your critique on it as well. And again, go check out the video over on this content creators page. Let me make sure I show respect and link that in the chat. Nah, she's still crazy. Bex says, see how you know she's still crazy. Crazy recognize crazy. That's what they say, Bex. That's what they say.
Number 1, Kevin Samuels highlighted the toxicity of modern women. Modern women are those who are highly career driven, have dominant personalities, believe they're superior to men, don't respect men. They may treat men just as an accessory or as kind of like a trophy. They'll brag about how they're educated or independent and don't need a man. They may be quick to anger and have bad attitudes, especially towards potential suitors. They may not take criticism very well, and they view themselves as the prize. They think that they're perfect, and they may dream of being part of a power couple. Typically, modern women will want the men that they can't have. For example, they'll want men that have lots of options or men that show them.
What do you guys think? What do you guys think about that? Interesting thing about that, right? The one thing, I was raised in a time period where women were considered the prize. You know what took me out of that? It wasn't that I changed my mind on it. A lot of women, as I started coming up, started saying they didn't want to be referred to as a prize. They're not an inanimate object, and they saw themselves as more than that. So that's what took me away from the prize thing. I started listening to women. You know, I've said this multiple times on the Hold Up TV. Best information I've ever received about women were from women who were willing to tell me the truth. So find you a woman that's willing to tell you the truth and listen.
Them little to no attention. A lot of modern women will say that they prefer tall men, 6 foot and above, without knowing that the average height for a man is 5'9". The more experience they have with dating, the more unrealistic their standards become.
And the reason I stopped matchmaking is because I can't handle female clients. I was a matchmaker that matched females.
All right, so this is really important, this part here. This is, yeah, as she said, she's a matchmaker, and she had been doing a lot of work within the Black community. She's not a celebrity matchmaker, but she's well known. And I just want you to listen to this part.
And listen, it was such a valuable lesson for me, because what I learned is that the average woman doesn't really want just a good man. She doesn't want a husband. What she's really wanting are these standards or ideas that she has of what a man is supposed to be. But this is nothing what men are. This is not realistic. You're comparing good men to, I can't say this, F-boys. I'm just going to say it. You're comparing good men to the men that you've experienced previously who were not ready to be husbands, that you were just dating.
And that's the thing, man. I know both sexes are guilty of it. I used to do it too. I did it to Mrs. Holdup. You know, I was comparing Mrs. Holdup to unhealthy relationships. This is one of the things I was talking to DT Dub about the other night. He'd asked me a question about this, and other people have asked me. It is your responsibility as a functioning adult or otherwise, if you are dealing with trauma, and I say this with love, and you're dealing with reoccurring issues that have come over from the past that are holding you back, and you're projecting those images, or even just generalized trauma, you should seek therapy to break that pattern. Because even if you weren't the abuser and you were the abusee, you can sometimes bring that into the next situation you're in. And that's just a clinical fact. You don't have to take my word for it. Ask any social worker, ask any therapist. People who've been abused or who have done wrong start to see everyone through that lens because of their trauma. And that's why they say you're not responsible for your trauma, but you are responsible for your treatment to recover from it. That's a fact.
Messing around with. He's supposed to look like this. He's supposed to act like that. oh, you know what? He's too corny. He likes me too much. He texts me too much. Yeah, because the men that you were met.
Have any of you gentlemen dealt with that, or ladies, have you dealt with it too? The unavailability. I know this is a new phenomenon where it's like he's too available. He's too nice of a guy. I need my dumbass ex-boyfriend back. Too nice. What's that all about?
Messing with, you weren't even the only one. They don't text you right back. They don't call you right back because they have 8 more just like you. So a man comes along that is crazy about you and is interested in you. And I'm sorry to say, you have friend zoned the men that really you're compatible with, the men that would make a wonderful husband. A lot of you have friend zoned the good dude who's ready to be.
Did you hear that part? A lot of you have friend zoned the good dude who would be ready to step in the gap and be there for you. You put him in a friend zone because you're still looking for the unhealthy version of the dream. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Be a husband and a father and give you some pretty babies. If you get a pretty boy and they super fine and they in the mirror more than you got a problem. But the problem is you looking at visuals and thinking that men are supposed to look like us or be just as gorgeous as us. No, that's not how God created this whole scenario. Mm-hmm. Less than 14% of the entire American male population is over 6 foot, just height. And if you add in what he looks like looking like Idris and making money like this and that, honey, look, you looking for the come up for real because I don't know where he's at. I was matchmaking. I would be like, man, I would go find these incredible men. And they would be like, I would never date him. It's like he's got to.
Yeah, and that's the point. At what point does preference become prejudice, right? So, and I would say this is, men are culpable of this as well. Like, at what point do you start going, wow, my preferences are unrealistic. I have a warped or skewed view of what attractive is or what I should think is valuable. It takes self-reflection, and it also takes a lot of maturity.
Gotta be perfect, but you're not perfect.
Boom.
You got issues and unresolved issues, and you got a temper, and you're bossy and you're controlling, and men don't even like to be around you long term. You run everybody away. You think you're so much the ish that you're.
Kathy says people need to feel sexual attraction to their sig otherwise, what do you have besides emotional imbalance? I think you were trying to say emotional balance. Yeah, I agree with that. Also, I agree with this statement. That's true across the board. So if you believe that stance that you have to be sexually attracted to your partner, then you can't get mad at a man or woman when they say they don't date fat guys or fat women. You know what I'm saying? And this is the thing that I think that Kevin Samuels did brilliantly, was just brilliant at, was the fact that he would point out the inconsistencies, like the inconsistent viewpoints that people have. You have to be that way. And if you were wanting someone who's above average in attraction level, well, how do you look on that spectrum? It's a hard pill, but would someone actually rate you a 10, or are you just rating yourself a 10?
Bougie and vain and stuck up. And men don't like it. And you wonder why you can't keep a man. You wonder why nobody wants to be around you. But your standards are standardizing you right out of the game. I'm not going to settle. But in the meantime, boo, you're not even half the things that you have on your list as requirements for a man.
I knew a guy, shout out to a gentleman by the name of Rudy from Southern California. And he would always tell me, make sure you can be the man that the woman you want needs, and I would always think about that. And it's like, make sure you have the traits that are desirable, that you are the person that you want, right? That you are able to live up to that standard yourself. And that's what I'm saying. It's the unrealistic expectation and standard. It's like, well, okay, where do you fall on the beauty scale? Too often I hear a lot of women, not all women, a lot of women disregard and downplay a man's physical presentation. And I'm like, but ma'am, you're 5'10". Yeah. Where do you get off talking about the height of a man? Who told you had that ability? And the same thing with guys. I'm like, bruh, you're 320. You haven't worked out in years. What do you mean you want to model?
You're not even half those things, but you want that in a man. because until a man is ready, he is not going to choose you. It doesn't matter how you put it down in the bedroom. It doesn't matter what kind of values. It doesn't matter how big your butt is and what you look like. Until a man is ready, he is not settling down. And if you do mess up and get one of these dudes on a string and get him to marry you, you notice I said get him to marry you, you're going to be in so much trouble because he ain't going to change.
A lot of modern women have been told while growing up to just focus on becoming financially stable on their own, whether that means learning a trade or pursue higher education. And while they're doing this, they're told not to worry about men. There's nothing wrong with reaching your dreams and having goals for yourself. However,
and see, I think that's the thing that would get lost. Kevin Samuels would say that. He was like, I'm not telling you not to pursue a career. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't pursue the highest form of your education, but again, people selective listening through their bias. And this is a trait that we need to redevelop as adults and pass on to our kids. Just because you disagree with someone, don't allow your prejudice to keep you from actively listening to what they're saying versus what you think they're about to say. It's a bad habit we've developed.
if marriage and family is a goal for you, you have to make dating a priority. But we'll talk more about that later in this video. A lot of modern women who are in their 30s, 40s, or even older complain that they can't find the right man. They think they're holding out for the one, but the dating pool just gets smaller and smaller.
Okay, there are 8 million people in this city. Sounds like a lot, right?
This is very important. This part, I'm so okay with this video not being monetized because I'm not monetized on YouTube, but I think it's more important to critique and listen to this and commentate over it. This portion is extremely important. This is so groundbreaking.
So 4 million men. And then you gotta have some age limits. Let's say over 20,
keep it legal,
under 40.
keep it sexy.
Now it's a million.
Right. We're talking about 1 million guys.
But half of them are married. 10% are gay. I want someone college educated, not too ugly. So
There's your boyfriend.
I wish. It's gotta be taller than me. And it's gotta want kids. So
Modern women want alpha males, aka high value men, but what they don't realize is a majority of these men are already married. Also, chances are their wives were there before the money and success. They managed the household and took care of the kids while he worked overtime to get to where he's at.
Did you hear that portion? Because here's something that happens in a lot of conversations and dynamics today, right? Women will say that they're feminist and they will say that they support a woman's decision to be a housewife because it's a job and you know, it's a thankless job if you're with the wrong guy and you got some bad kids. But here's the thing. It is a true calling. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of dedication, a lot of self-sacrifice to be a housewife. And I don't think people really respect it. I think in a lot of feminist circles, they tolerate women who are housewives when they actually loathe those women because those women decided of their own volition. They were not forced. We don't live in a theonomy or theocracy here in America. They decided that they wanted to be at home with their children and raise their children and be a wife to their husband. And their understanding of being a wife to their husband is not being subservient, but this is how I support you, support our family. You got to hear that part. They weren't forced into it. They made the decision themselves.
Modern women want all the reward of a high value man, but none of the work. They've most likely failed in the dating market because they're only interested in players. And now they assume all men are like that. Modern women will typically attract beta males or simps.
Beta!
These type of men will allow modern women to treat them like shit. They're partially to blame.
Okay, so with the term beta, I think sometimes we forget that they're not talking about like actual like beta males in the sense of a wolf pack. Even beta males in a wolf pack would attack. They're talking about men who are 100% subservient. They don't stand up for themselves. They let people run all over them, not, you know, including their women. And then the only reason this would be negative is this man's not with you because he truly values you. He's with you because he needs you to validate him, which goes hand in hand with your point. A lot of women are like, I'm not here to be your mother. Well, don't date betas if you don't want to be someone's mama.
Blame for the bad attitudes of modern women because they're willing to put up with the disrespect and make these women think that they're perfect. Even though they can easily have a beta male, they want the alpha male who isn't willing to put up with their toxicity for long. If this describes you, then I hate to break it to you, but these men are not fully attracted to you. If they're single or willing to cheat on their wives, then they may sleep with you. They may even date you for a short period of time. But
Side piece culture. We've talked about this before. I think we talked about it on Dope Dynamics. Are you willing to be a side piece for a guy that's willing to tolerate you? You know, what? Or same thing for guys, man. Are you willing to be a side piece? It's amazing what people will do in the hopes that they'll get upgraded. Absolutely amazing.
But they're not going to see you as marriageable. Now that you know about the toxicity of modern women, we can move on to number 2. Kevin Samuels helped women understand men and what men want.
Okay, so this is important. This part is really important. So one of the things I think, because people had such a disdain for him, and he earned it in many aspects, in many respects, they weren't listening to what Kevin Samuels was actually saying in certain conversations. He's saying if you want a different result, then you got to do something different. So if you're calling in as a woman who has 4 children and you've dated a certain type of guy, you need to change the actions that got you those results. So instead of looking in the same places that you have already looked in, why not look in the places that you have not looked in? And in doing so, and saying that, he's confronting a certain type of mentality. And he did that with the brothers as well. And I think that was missed. It became partisan, quote unquote, not that this has anything to do with politics, but people chose sides instead of going, oh, how does this information benefit me? Have I been looking in the wrong places to find the results that I want?
And men, you need to be able to see the world from their perspective.
Men don't voice their feelings because half the time they end up upsetting their woman when they do. And then they have to console her about how his feelings made her feel.
Ooh.
You're only hurting yourself when you don't try to understand. To get the
Yeah, no, Kathy, I agree with you. I think the healthiest thing is for people to choose whatever makes them happy. Polyamory, monogamy, asexual, side piece. The only problem with that, I won't comment on the other things because I don't shop in those supermarkets. The only thing about the side piece thing is you cannot complain about being a side piece constantly. And also, if you're the type of side piece that preys on that type of scenario, that man made a decision to make you his side piece and broke his marriage. But just think about what being a side piece is. What happened to women stick together? If you're side piecing a dude, what about his wife at home? Your choice is now impacting someone else's personal life.
The man you want, you have to learn about him. What does he like in a woman? What does he need from a woman? If you've been single for a while, then you may think there's no good men. But according to Kevin Samuels, 54% of Black males are single and childless.
Boom.
There's some genuinely nice guys out here, but modern women don't.
And that goes against the narrative that there's no good men in the community. Statistics can be altered, but god damn it, if it's a multi-layered variable research panel and it shows you that there are men out there that are single and childless, maybe it's not every guy that you're with, and maybe it's not every woman that you're with. Maybe it's you. Maybe you are picking poorly. Maybe you need to seek therapy. Stop making it about all this other stuff. Why don't you look in the mirror and go to yourself, why the hell do I keep ending up with Pookies and Ray Rays? Why the hell do I keep ending up with these horrible women? Maybe you are picking wrongly, but we live in a state, in a society that says, no, it's not you. It's everyone else. You have the right to be whatever way you want. You don't have the right to be dysfunctional and then not want all your results. You work at being an asshole, you get asshole results. You work at being a BIT, you get BIT results.
Don't want them. Also, only 1 in 4 Black women will get married in their lifetime, and 75% of those marriages will end in divorce. Women.
And see, here's the thing. So stereotypes after stereotypes, Kathy, but what you're not engaging with is she's quoting statistics. What she's doing, and this is what I'm saying, you're missing it. You're missing it. You gotta be with the point. She's talking about women who constantly seek after the wrong thing and then complain about their results. It is akin to A man who goes to prison multiple times and then blames the system for him being in prison. That's not the system's fault. Stop committing crimes.
File for divorce 85% of the time.
It was a mutual decision.
Who filed for divorce?
It was mutual.
Who filed for divorce? Who filed for divorce? Who filed for divorce?
I can't necessarily.
Who filed for divorce?
I did.
Thank you.
And Beck says, are we asking ourselves how these marriages ended in divorce? So when they break it down further, there were women and men who were divorcing, even though women own the lion's share. I'm thinking you're seeking after whether or not it was through abuse or not. Unfortunately, the data did not say that it was because of abuse. It said otherwise. Liv, what's going on, bro? That's the reason I'm happy having never had a boyfriend at 24. Right guy is worth waiting for. Ooh, grenades in the chat.
You need to know what men are looking for to attract better quality men. Contrary to what you might have been told,
better quality men. This is a real thing, ladies. Listen to that. You cannot hold other men accountable for the low quality men you were dealing with. You know what I'm saying? You want a better quality of men? Listen to quality men tell you what you need to be looking for. Shout out to my two young homegirls in California, man. I remember they asked me, I bumped into two friends of mine. I think Mrs. Holdup and I were into child number 2, and they were like, hey, how do we find husbands? I was like, yo, stop looking in the places you were looking before. It works.
men don't care about our degrees or the money we make. They know they're not entitled to our money, so why would they care? After I got my MBA, I thought men were gonna be lined up trying to date me. Anytime I would kind of brag about it, they didn't care. They would literally look at me like this. Also,
let me see. Let me just address this real quick. What did Kathy say here? We don't live in a communist nation where we must forcefully marry. No, Steve, those stats don't represent all women. It's been scientifically proven that people who mostly fill out surveys are people who feel either strongly for or strongly against something. So no stat will 100% represent any group of people, right? But this is based off of the census, right? So if we're looking at it in a multi-layered variable sort of way, Kathy, then you have to hold that position in everything else. So that means from this point moving forward, you can quote no other statistic because you feel as if though people who participate in these panels and these surveys are just saying things that the panel taker or the survey taker is asking. Make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. Either we trust data or we don't.
Expect a man to squeeze into your life while you work on your goals because he'll just find somebody else. My boyfriend told me he wouldn't care if I worked at Walmart just as long as I was the same person with the same personality. And if a guy does care about your money,
run. All right, and here we go right here. And that's because those men you are talking to want a dumb brick with knowledge of nothing but cooking and cleaning. This is what I'm talking about with ad hominem. You couldn't qualify that or quantify it at all. So the assertion made here by my good friend Cincy is that that a man that loves a traditional woman doesn't want a woman who has any thoughts of her own. Well, that doesn't make sense. How could you prove that? Or how could you disprove it? I think what happens more so on this side of the conversation is the fact that, and again, I think people hate housewives. I think people hate the notion of housewives. My wife is a housewife and she went to college. She's more educated than most of the people I know that spout the liberal nonsense. And she has all types of thoughts. And I love listening to her thoughts. You got to make it make sense to me. Sometimes your implicit bias comes through for no reason.
something else you might find surprising about men, they're willing to go down in looks for peace if they have to.
No, Kathy, I know what you meant, but she wasn't talking about a dating survey. She was actually talking about tested and tried statistical data. That's what I'm saying.
I used to date this guy and I was a total asshole to him. One day he just broke up with me and I didn't know why. And then I seen he was dating this other girl. I was really confused by it. And once they stopped talking, I asked him, why did he break up with me for her? He said he didn't find her as attractive. However, she was nicer to him. On a first date, most men know that they should pay for the meal, but that doesn't mean you should openly expect.
And that's a crazy thing, man. I think we take for granted the fact that sometimes people will deal with and here's the thing, that the levels, subjective, who's attractive to who, but I realize now at the age of 41 that I would have traded any of the women that I met previously for a moment of peace and quiet with a woman who was of worth. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And what typically happens when you say that is women are like, well, you don't like a strong woman. No, I have no issue with strong women, but working in the clinical field, I'll tell you what I do have an issue with: disgruntled and destructive women, who haven't dealt with their core issues. That's not my bag. So I stopped going there. I stopped going to that drinking well. And this is why I reject like ratchet culture and all those things. I realized after like dating in the hood for many years, I was like, yo, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I constantly going to a place where dysfunction is celebrated when I can just simply look for women who don't celebrate dysfunction? Make it make sense. Make it make sense. I think that's the thing that happens. Like, and this is why I don't use terms like in a weaponized way, simp and all that stuff, because it's, it really takes away from the conversation. But looking at it clinically, the things that we celebrate in our culture today amaze me. Like, the things that we will defend and become self-righteous about are things that you would go to therapy to deal with less than a decade ago. Stop dating dysfunctional people and then blaming that dysfunction that you experience from that person on someone else.
Expect them to pay or be ungrateful about it. Also, don't go on dates for free food. I'm totally guilty of this. If you're not romantically interested in him, then don't go on the date in the first place. He's spending his time and resources to get to know you, and men value their time and resources more than anything. Also,
hold on for a sec. Let me see here. I know a friend who has a degree, and let me bring this up here. I know a friend who has a degree and is a high-paid nurse in a psychiatric field, and she's married, and her husband doesn't work and spends all her money. This woman here keeps spouting stereotype after stereotype. It's not helpful or accurate. Okay, so let me see if I can deal with this. So there is prescriptive and descriptive targeted audience conversation. Her conversation is geared towards women and having a skewed view of how they should be able to date in regards to men. So while I understand your statement here, Kathy, it's not really applicable as a critique of what she's saying, because it's not a stereotype. If she's not stereotyping all women, she's going after modern women. She set the category and then she stuck to it. And that's what I'm saying about conversation. If someone is critiquing a group of people, that's not all people. By definition, it's a group.
Men are becoming less and less likely to go on dinner dates because they're tired of being used for free food. When women do this, they're ruining it for the girl that actually likes him, because now he's less likely to take women on dates. We see power couples like Jay-Z and Beyonce, Will and Jada, if you still want to count them.
Nope.
And we think that's how relationships are supposed to be. Power couple shit. These type of couples are heavily glorified in the Black community. However, they're quite rare. You'd have way better luck finding an average man, and the average man earns $45,000 annually. If you want a high value man who makes over $100K annually, then you should know that this is only about 10% of all men. High value men are men with means and influence, and they typically don't reach their financial peak until their 40s.
Beck says, choose better. Ain't that what they tell us? Choose wisely, then maybe you won't get used for free food. This is what you call a dishonest intellectual, dishonest representation. So let's assume that we're going out on a date. The critique isn't of the man taking you out on a date. If he has the means to take you out and buy you food, fine. But doesn't that say something about your self-worth, that you just out here trying to get a meal? Get $1, go to McDonald's.
In relationships, us women value financial stability, so we think that's what men want too. However, they don't value that. Men just want peace and cooperation from us. Most modern women want financial stability, but they lack the peace and cooperation. You would need to be a homemaker / nurturer. Also, you want to strive to be fit, feminine, and friendly. Yes, I said fit.
Uh-oh.
Men are visual. It's just important to take care of yourself.
All right, so I don't want to go too far into the YouTube guidelines because we got other stuff to talk about. Again, I'm the type of person that has often indulged and listened to the opposition's for many years. The one thing I have always found is you cannot live in an echo chamber. And that's what I see with a lot of my left-leaning friends is they live in an echo chamber and they only research the things that support their argument. And I see that a lot, unfortunately, in the Black community as well. And I'm the type of person that can say it and say it with my chest because I'm not scared. But the problem is you don't go where the opposition is. So how can you accurately respond or rebuke their points if you don't know what they're saying? I'll say this about Kevin Samuels and his legacy and what he has done. I know that there are women and his audience, for God's sake, was 85% women who have said, you have helped change my life. I will never forget the moment a woman called up of a certain age. I believe she was like 46, and she was going to divorce her husband for the most frivolous reason, but it would be celebrated today. She simply said, my higher happiness was not being reached, which sounds like this profound truth, right? Right? It sounds like this profound truth, but in actuality, you were going to break down your marriage because you haven't learned how to be still. And I thought it was amazing that she was willing to take critique for someone on the other side, and it saved her marriage. Man, she called back in crying and thanking him that she didn't blow up her life over the silliest reason. Beck says these type of people are a joke of society. I don't know what that means. They tell us to choose better, D, so I'm telling them to do the same. Yeah, no, you can choose. In regards to guys choosing women to take out, I'm saying the type of dude that's going to take a woman out for a date, that's cool. Take her out for a date, buy her a meal. I'm actually attacking the woman that goes out for a free meal. I'm telling that chick to get $1, get a job, go get a McDonald's sandwich. Stop being a bum. Let's see what else. I just realized what Red Pill Community's motto is. FFF, correct? I don't know what that means. D, break it down for me. So at the end of the day, I'll say this and I'll leave it at that. If this hits you in a sore spot or you find yourself being overly defensive, you might be implicitly biased, or you might be the type of person that doesn't really have a stance on anything at all. And you're just like, whatever society says is okay is what I'm going to go with. And if the popular culture says it's cool, then I'm going to go with that as well. I find that it's better to do a little bit more digging. And this is why I reject new age spirituality, because new age spirituality is really just an offshoot of clinical science, right? And they affirm things that shouldn't be affirmed. And that's why I always find it dangerous. Instead of listening for the things that make you feel good, why not take some honest critique? Bex and I were having a private conversation. This portion wasn't private, but she'd asked me a question about affirmation therapist. And I had to make sure before I responded to it that I was not about to say something stupid, because I'm the type of person that likes to do my research before I spout anything. And she asked me, are therapists supposed to affirm you? And I'm like, no, they're not supposed to affirm you. They are, however, supposed to hold up a mirror towards you. And I think that we spend too much time affirming weak-willed men and women who don't want to experience any consequence in this society because they've muddled themselves into the conversation. But again, shout out to Ash on the line for making this video. I know she's probably going to catch a lot of slack over this. I'm looking at some of the comments that came through here, and there's no really intelligible argument. It's more just like personal attacks and nonsensical bullshit. So, shout out to her for making the content and pushing the conversation forward. Let's get on to the next thing. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second here, and you can see my beautiful face. Shout out to everyone that's in here. Oh, feminine, friendly, and fit. No, that's not what the red pill is entirely about. If he a trick, Steve. Well, if she a hoe, then she need to be hoed, right? So then everyone, okay, if we're going by that logic, if he a trick and she a hoe, I don't want to hear anyone talking about victims of anything. Then no one's truly a victim. It's just people making conscious decisions. And if you are making a conscious decision to be a trick and you're making a conscious decision to be a hoe, that means that we should never have to hear you complain about the consequences of your decisions. That's all I'm saying. And D, so here's the problem with the red pill. One of my biggest critiques of them, there is no core doctrine, right? There's no core set of values that they all share. And that's why it's easy, I think, for a lot of weird ass incel wannabe guys to slip into their ranks, and why ultimately I'm not a part of their ranks. If there's no discernible doctrine and there's no ideology that I can really understand beyond the point of like, hey, we are men trying to find women that meet the worldview that we have, and there are women amongst it, then it's a group I'm going to avoid. But like any group that gets misrepresented in certain instances, I did some research. I don't think a lot of people have researched what a lot of guys are saying over there, because they're not like, hey, get these bitches back in the kitchen. A lot of guys are just looking for good women, and they're guarded, you know? So let's get into the next topic. The next topic before I wrap it up here. I've been having a lot of fun. This is a hot button one. And, you know, I got to tell you honestly, a part of me doesn't want to talk about this at all. And I want to choose my words carefully, because here's what I've learned about conversations on the internet. And here's what I learned about talking with people, right? In regards to controversial topics. Once again, people only hear what they want to hear. They don't engage with what's actually happening. And the conversation has been dominated by, I don't know what, but I am just the type of person, let's have the conversation. Let's debate. I was telling another friend of mine, they asked me, they're like, well, what do you do for fun, Steve? I was like, you know, mostly when I have a quiet moment in myself, when I'm not streaming or I'm not with my family, et cetera, I listen to a lot of lectures and I listen to a lot of debates. I'll pick a debate where it's two opposing sides on a very hot button issue. And I'm talking about real debates, not morons on the idiots, you know, trying to spell and getting their grammar all wrong. Not that type of bullshit. Like two scholars of aforementioned, you know, topics. And I'll listen to what they're debating and I'll look at their sources and I'll work through it thoughtfully and carefully. And I'm like, and then I'll come to a conclusion that I can't make up out of thin air. So Matt Walsh is a conservative commentator. He is obviously a part of the Daily Wire, and he was on Dr. Phil not too long ago and had a very interesting talk about a topic that has become widely controversial. What is a woman? And from that talk birthed a documentary where he travels around America asking that question. So we're not going to get into the content of it, because I don't think that people can honestly let me just say, I think people are too stupid to have an intellectual conversation, and it just becomes talking points that they've read on a meme, right? So I find myself in these type of interactions often where I'm just like, well, hey man, this was a study that was done on that, and this study was later refuted, and what say you to this? And then I realize that they're just reading me shit that they read on Facebook. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to bail out of this one early. But in regards to this conversation, Matt Walsh and the Daily Wire have made a documentary about what is a woman, and I'll let your imagination guide on that. And apparently Rotten Tomatoes said it is the most viewed documentary of quite some time. So you should check that out. But I wanted to get the conversation going about it, because we'll listen to Matt Walsh and I'll let you guys make up your own mind.
To a lot of people for my film, What is a Woman, which is streaming now exclusively on the Daily Wire. And you go to whatiswoman.com and get signed up, and you can watch the film right now. Many of the conversations we had were...
Kathy says, everyone should seek what makes them happy. If they're complaining, then that means they're not choosing what it was choosing, or maybe haven't realized exactly what they want. But everyone can learn what's best for them. It's not at this or that issue. It's a deep issue. Plus, not everyone even knows what healthy relationships is because of traumas. Right. I'm going to throw out, I don't give out therapeutic advice, but I'm going to mirror something out here. Right. Again, as an adult, it is your responsibility to deal and heal from your trauma. And if you need resources to deal with that, then I would be more than happy to do that. But the problem is that we have allowed people the excuse of not learning from their mistakes, where that doesn't fit into the social dynamic of where we are today. We are either moving forward, or we will constantly be saying we're in the healing stage. I'm all for people making their own decisions and experiencing their own consequences, but you don't get to make the same mistake over and over again and then make it someone else's problem. And you should not affirm someone making the same mistake over and over again, because that's not morally, ethically, or clinically the best idea to do.
Unintentionally hilarious. Many were disturbing. Veering significantly over to the disturbing end of the spectrum is my interview with Dr. Michelle Forcier, who is, as you'll hear her proudly identify herself, a gender-affirming pediatrician and also an abortionist. We flew up to Providence, Rhode Island to speak with Dr. Forcier. She was, friendly enough at first. And what we found in many of the interviews that you'll see in What is a Woman is that gender ideologues are very polite and nice right up until the moment when you express any skepticism at all. But before we get to that point, where things really start to sort of fall apart, let's get to know Michelle a little bit. Watch.
And shout out to the cinematography crew, man. This is a great shot.
My name is Michelle Forcier, and I have a medical degree from University of Connecticut, residency, University of Utah, pediatrics.
And now, because of copyright, I'm only going to play like a small instance. If you're very interested in what they're saying, and I think you should go watch it, especially if you disagree with his stances, go watch it so you can better refute them. But we'll get through this portion.
And I've worked for a number of different Planned Parenthoods for 20 years. I do advanced contraception and abortion, as well as gender hormones, and sort of looking at the whole sort of schema of gender, sex, and reproductive justice.
So you've done a lot of work in this field. Could you just start by telling us?
Sure.
At what age can a child first begin to transition into another gender or identify themselves as a gender different from how they were born?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's research and data that show that babies and infants understand differences in gender. Some children figure out their gender really early. And the reason why we say, oh, that's interesting or important is because they're figuring out their gender identity is not necessarily congruent with their sex assigned at birth.
When the doctor sees the penis and says, this is a male, has the sex of male, that's an arbitrary distinction.
Telling that family.
So I don't know if a lot of people are, I would not assume that people have gone to school for psychology or, human services or anything like that. But Matt Walsh is utilizing a method of questioning called the Socratic question. Go look that up. Very interesting. The Socratic questioning method. It's essentially asking the question of a person's point of view and allowing them to explain it. And if there are any gaps in their point of view, you don't have to refute it. They're going to point it out.
Family, based on that little penis, that your child is absolutely 100% male identified, no matter what else occurs in their life, that's not correct.
So what is gender affirmation care? You're a big proponent of. If we walk through, a child is sitting down with you, is questioning their gender. What's the gender affirmation process?
Affirmation means that as a pediatrician, as someone who says my job is to provide the best medical care for you, is I need to listen really carefully. And how I put it in words for kids so that they can understand it is,
I want you to know that pediatricians are not trained psychoanalysis professionals.
Tell me your story. Where have you been in terms of your gender and your gender identity? Where are you right now? And more excitingly, where would you like to be in the future?
Have you ever met a 4-year-old who believes in Santa Claus?
Mm-hmm.
So this is someone who believes that a fat man is traveling through the sky on a flying reindeer at lightning speed, coming down his chimney with presents.
Yeah.
Would you say that this is someone who maybe has a tenuous grasp on reality?
And that's about as far as we can go, because I know the Twitch algorithms and the YouTube algorithms. It's not arbitrary. Sex can be male or female or hermaphrodite. Gender is what you identify with, and gender and sexuality can be fluid, but sex is your okay. I want you to know, if you ever get a chance, look at the birth rate of hermaphrodites and how uncommon that is. But so why did I throw Matt Walsh on? Why would I risk at this tenuous point in my streaming career where people want you to basically agree with them and affirm everything that they say? Why would I bring that up? Because I think that this is a great way for conversation to continue. I'm going to be having some people on Conversation That Matter who you're not going to agree with. And the reason that I do that is because I love to have a person on and allow them to explain their viewpoint uninterrupted. I find it interesting, though, for as long as I've been doing Conversations That Matter, whenever I've had a Da Vinci on or, say, a public friend or anyone, left leaning or leaning towards feminism or communism, I've never gotten any pushback. I haven't even gotten pushback from the right side, right? Maybe I'll get some pushback from like my personal friends who are Christians, but it's never anything too volatile. It's like, hey, how come you didn't ask this question, or how come you didn't ask that question? The most pushback I've ever gotten, or most feedback I've ever gotten, was over the abortion topic. And a lot of those questions were more about, why did you allow this person to say this when this was untrue? And I had to re-explain what a moderator is versus me intervening into the conversation. I think this documentary is going to force people to have a conversation that they don't want to have. Because if you're willing to go watch it, you're going to have to do something that is not required of a lot of people that lean towards one side of the spectrum. And don't worry, I'll get to the right in a second. Matt Walsh doesn't do what Michael Bay did, which was a one-sided conversation. I love Michael Bay flicks for back in the day, Fahrenheit 9/11, etc. He goes to actual credited professionals at the highest part of the field and gives you a historical, evidential based argument, and then you have to deal with that. Because if it's happened in history and the evidence says that this is what happened and this is how this came about and this is how this field was birthed, talking about the affirming portion, then I leave it to you in the opposition to debate your standpoints. And the crazy thing about it is, I've been going around trying to find people who have watched the documentary, and I've only seen people who have said and responded to it in a way which is like, this is transphobic. And I kept reading through the article to see what part of the documentary they found was transphobic, so I can see if they've actually watched it, and they haven't. They haven't watched it at all. So I would challenge everyone in the audience here, man. Go watch the documentary. I want to see what your comments and your thoughts are. Not emotively. I expect that you're going to have emotions. We're human beings and we have a range of emotions. I do expect as adults we've learned to reel these things in. I'll share something with you. I am a black man. I don't know if you noticed that. I've read Mein Kampf. Shouldn't have said that out loud, but I read it. Why would I read a book like that? Because I want to know what the opposition thinks. And it doesn't offend me to know and how to represent accurately the opposing side. But what's happened is one side of this conversation has made it so it's to the point where you can't talk about it at all without consequences. And that hasn't only impacted their opposition, it's impacted their allies, quote unquote, and people who are in the middle trying to make a decision. I speak to a lot of people all the time about this, and they were like, man, I had some feelings about it, but I didn't go full right until I was told I was a hate monger for asking questions. You know, that's amazing to me. That's amazing to me. This is why I go so hard in debate, right? Because when you really, really start to press a person about what they believe and you get past the anecdotal information portion of the conversation, what you're left with is typically a person that doesn't believe anything. They've believed what they've been told, and they've done no research themselves. So I'm going to challenge all my friends. We're going to bring it to an end. 117 here. Go out, watch Matt Walsh's documentary before you condemn it on Twitter. I'm not telling you what to think or how to think. I'm just saying that you should watch it before you have an opinion on it. And then let's check back in next week, man. Let's get a real full orb conversation going on this. Same thing with the Kevin Samuels conversation. My challenge has always been to women. Have you gone to look at the results, and have you watched all of his content? And typically I'm met with a lot of things where it's like blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, I no need to have an intelligent conversation with you. You're a person that, you know, believes what you believe. And I have learned one thing from working in the psychiatric field. You can't talk someone out of delusion or stupidity. So with that said, I love y'all. This has been fun. It's been a while since we've done this. I mean, I can drop the link if anyone's brave enough to come up and represent their points in the chat. Here is the StreamYard link. Come on up. Let's talk about it. That's another thing. A lot of left-leaning people, yo, y'all got to stop being scared to jump in these conversations. It's amazing to me on Twitter when someone says, yo, cam up, let's get the debate going. Nobody wants to talk. No one has the courage, the strength of conviction then. It's only in chat or in Twitter. No one has any courage. So you want to come up, you disagree with something I said up here, come defend your stance. I'm more than willing to have you up. Very happy. If not, I'm gonna jump in DT Dubs Discord right now, have some fun. Shout out to everyone that came through, everyone that was willing to have a conversation in the chat. I'll make sure I link in both the video sources so everyone can enjoy. Steve made chicken sounds. Yes, I did. Chicken head. I will more than happily. And if you got something you want me to review, something you want me to engage with, drop that link in Discord. Say, Steve, I want to hear a review on this, and I will give you my thoughts. It's your boy Steve, real name, no gimmicks, never scared. Because what's to be scared of? It's just people on the internet. What are they really gonna do? Now, if it was a bunch of incels, I'd be terrified. But otherwise than that, peace.